All right, today we are going to review the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was not originally part of the Constitution, it was added later on. And the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments or changes that was added to the Constitution, and they were added in 1791. So we're going to start with the First Amendment. The First Amendment has 5 basic freedoms or rights that it guarantees. And the first freedom that we're going to look at with that is the freedom of religion. The freedom of religion guarantees separation of church and state, which in the United States, most people think of as the United States government can't set up a nationwide religion. Like they can't say everybody has to be Christian or everybody has to be Catholic. So that says that people can choose religion if they want or no religion if they would like. Also, free exercise. That means that if you choose to practice a religion, as long as your religion does not require you to do something illegal, then the government cannot step in and stop you. The second part of the First Amendment is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech means that, for the most part, you're allowed to say what you would like when you would like in the United States. There are limits to that. For example, clear and present danger. A good reference to that would be if you are in the military and you have a high clearance job, you will not be allowed to publish on Facebook where you go and what you do at every given moment, because that may be in clear and present danger to the United States if you did so. Fighting words would be another one. Obscene speech, like in music, some of that is banned. Damaging character, like you can't say or print things about other people that could damage their character. Slander is when you say things about someone that is damaging, and libel is when you print things about someone that is damaging. So those things are not allowed in the grown-up world unless there is proof. False advertising, and that's more with businesses, and then also at school. Obviously, at school, if you're in an assembly, like in the gym, and you yell fire and everybody runs outside, then you're going to be in trouble. So that would be a limit to your freedom of speech. Freedom of press, a limit would be libel. Freedom of press is where newspapers or magazines are allowed to print what they would like. The limit would be libel, printing things that are not true. So they have to have some truth to that, or have sources that have told them this information so that they can back up what they print. The fourth one is freedom of assembly. That means to gather in groups, to possibly protest, to do a sit-in, to go on strike. Protest is to show that you're against something usually, or possibly for something. But you're not allowed to protest at school. Your rights to protest at school are very, very limited. Strikes are usually for businesses, but you're also not allowed to strike at school. Like you can't say, we're not going to do this homework, so we're going to go on strike. You cannot do that at school. Also, you couldn't stage a walkout at school. That was not a form of protest that's allowed. Number 5, freedom of petition. Petition is a document that you write up what you would like to get accomplished. Like if you want lower prices in the lunchroom, or you want more books in the library, or something like that, then you would gather signatures under that of people that also support that idea. Then you would turn it into who can make that happen, whether it's somebody at your school, somebody at state, local government, or even United States government. So those are our rights under the First Amendment. Second Amendment is commonly referred to as the right to bear arms. And this originally was not set up so that everybody in the United States would have the right to own their own weapon and carry it wherever they wanted to. It was originally set up so that people in militias, which are those people in every little state that were willing to fight if needed, would be able to have a weapon and use it if they needed to, since we didn't really have a military yet. But since we do have a United States military now, that has kind of become that everybody in the United States should have the right to own their own weapon. So this is still an amendment that is enforced today, and it's kind of a controversial amendment today too, as to whether it should still be allowed. All right, the Third Amendment. The Third Amendment says that the United States cannot force you to house or keep soldiers in your home. And when we talked about this with the American Revolution Unit, we said that this was a big problem, that the British were forcing their soldiers to be kept in colonial homes and or colonial buildings, and that the colonists didn't agree with that. So the founding fathers thought that this was such a big issue that they included it in the Bill of Rights. Now, we would not even think about the United States military, knocking on our door and saying, hey, we need to put 10 soldiers in your house and they're going to sleep in your bed and eat your food. I mean, that would not happen. But they thought enough of it at the time to put an amendment about it. The Fourth Amendment has a couple parts. It talks about no unreasonable searches and seizures, meaning that the police or military, if need be, are not allowed to just search and seize or take your things without probable cause, so without a warrant. Three things needed to get a warrant, like if they're going to search your property, is they would need to know what they're looking for, so they just can't come in your home thinking we're going to find something illegal. They need to know exactly what they're coming in to look for. An address, and also probable cause. So belief that they're going to find something, not just saying, hey, he might be doing something sketchy. Legal searches without warrants. They can search if they see an item in plain view. If the police happen to be in your neighborhood, walking by your house or your apartment, and they see a table right near a window that has a gun and some drugs laying on the table, then that's going to lead them to a search without a warrant. Consent by the owner if you just let them come in and do the search. Emergencies, like if they think a suspect is going to escape, then they can go ahead and do that. Vehicles, they don't have to have warrants for that, like if they just stop your car. And border searches, like at the United States-Canada or United States-Mexico border. Also, I wanted to kind of point this out because a lot of times students think, if they have to have warrants and things like this, then how can we be searched at school? So this is what the United States government says about that. They say in the United States, students have no reasonable expectation of privacy in school. So that means your locker, your sports locker, your book bag, your pocketbook, your gym bag, all of that is subject to be searched at any time, even if you are not around. That also includes that the government said that the school officials are what they call in loco parentis, which means that they are given the same authority as your parents to conduct searches without a warrant. Your parents do not have to have a warrant to go into your room and look through your things. You might think they do, but they don't. So the same goes for school officials. They can go through your stuff in your locker without you even knowing that they are in them. And one thing I wanted to point out to you guys with this is cars. Once you guys go to the high school and you start driving to school, your cars can also be searched without your permission or without you knowing. More intrusive searches can also happen, like drug tests, but that usually requires a superintendent's permission. The Fifth Amendment has 5 parts. It includes the right to remain silent. And we talked about this more in class, the Miranda rights, but this is where a suspect was not told that he didn't have to comment on him being arrested, and he admitted to the crime and was able to get out of any type of punishment for it because he was not told he didn't have to say anything when he was initially arrested. Protection from double jeopardy. Double jeopardy just means that if you are arrested and go to court convicted of a crime, then you cannot be convicted of that same crime again. You cannot serve time and be convicted of that same crime again. Eminent domain. Eminent domain is where, say, the government might need to take part of your yard to create a highway. They can do that. They also have to pay you a fair value for the property that they take. Grand jury indictments, and also due process is dealing more with the court side, but that's dealing with protecting you as an individual if you were to be in court. The Sixth Amendment, this is also protecting you as an individual if you were in court. It has 5 basic parts. You have the right to a speedy, fair, and public trial. You can have a jury in a criminal court to hear your case. So it's not just a judge or not just lawyers or things like that. You have to be informed of your charges. You can't be just put in jail for no reason. You can be allowed to question your witnesses, and you have the right to an attorney. The Seventh Amendment says you have the right to a jury trial in civil cases. Civil cases is where there's not a crime committed. It's just 2 people maybe suing each other or something going on between 2 sets of people or groups of people possibly. A lot of times people would want a jury in a civil case possibly for sympathy or empathy to sway them to their side. The Eighth Amendment has 2 parts to it: no cruel or unusual punishment, and no excessive fines or bails, meaning that if you commit a crime, then the punishment should fit that. Like if you are accused of, speeding, then your punishment is not going to be life in prison. It needs to fit what your crime is. Or again, if you're accused of speeding, then your fine is not going to be $1 million. It's going to be appropriate to what your actual crime was. Ninth Amendment, rights not listed belong to the people. For example, the Constitution says nothing about people having the right to privacy. So the Ninth Amendment kind of encompasses anything that was left out, like the right to privacy, which people obviously have. Now, that's pretty limited at school, but you do have that outside of here. 10th Amendment, powers not given to Congress belong to the states. There are some things not listed in the Constitution that are important, like setting up schools. So the states were given powers to do that, so the state governments have those powers. This was our review of the Bill of Rights, so I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.